Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce Andrew Fletcher to you today. Andrew is one of those remarkable, energetic and capable people that make things happen. And it's a privilege to have him here given his busy schedule. He's currently the CEO of DefenceSA. I wouldn't need to explain to anybody in the room here the significance of Tech Court down in Osborne for South Australia. He also is the Deputy Chairman and a Director of Penrice Soda Holdings at the moment. He has some private interests with Timlin's Wines, he's a Director of. And in keeping with Sir Eric's comments last week, Andrew also is a member of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander War Memorial Appeal. Andrew has had a variety of roles in the past. One significant one was his time with KBR and was in fact responsible for the strategic direction of KBR's global infrastructure business, looking after 2,700 staff with 45 offices in 20 countries. So Andrew is certainly a man who can handle a project. And some of his other past involved as Chairman of the South Australian Major Projects Facilitation Group, Chairman of the Olympic Dam Expansion Steering Group, Chairman of the Adelaide Entertainment Centre Board, member of the Construction Industry Training Board, National Vice President of the Property Council of Australia. I could go on and on. In fact, he's been a very busy man. So we're thrilled to have him here today. I'd like to give him a great welcome talking about DefenceSA.
President Chris, Rotarians, thank you so much for having me today. I never not make a chance to espouse about the state's defence interests, and that's what I hope to do in the next 15 minutes, give you a quick overview of what we're doing in the state and what industry is doing in the state with defence, and indeed why it's so important to the state. In reality, defence is big business. It's now about $25 billion a year. It was $30 billion until the federal government took its razor to it over the last year. But of that, about $9.5 billion is spent on procurement and through life support of defence assets. And of that, about half again, so it's around $5 billion is spent is an indigenous spend within Australia. Over the next 15 years, they're going to replace nearly 90% of the defence capability equipment. So you can see it's a big play in terms of opportunities for industry. There's a list up there of things that will be replaced, but they'll be replaced by things like 48 ships over the next 30 years, 100 odd fighter aircraft and another 50 other aircraft, 120 odd helicopters, and thousands, literally thousands, 4,000 or 5,000 military vehicles. So you can see our interest. In fact, the scale of the upgrade and replacement opportunity is staggering if you compare it. But it actually amounts to 10% of the current value of Australian government's non-financial assets. So big business. Having said that, defence, whilst it's a monopsony customer and it's industry that supplies the goods and services to it, it's a multi-headed beast, and it takes a lot of effort for both industry and those that want to participate in the defence organisation to understand and work across all the areas, most of whom, one way or another, get involved in every project and contract. Defence itself got about 75,000 military people, about 25,000 reservists, and there's about 7,000 people in the Defence Material Organisation that does all the procurement for life support. South Australia, our focus on defence was an accident. It was a deliberate focus. In 2003, some very good people with great foresight, including our current governor, Robert de Cretney and the Premier and others of the day focused on defence as a way forward thing through the initial economic development report. We've got strong bipartisan support, that helps, and we're enshrined in the state strategic plan. We're the only state in the state strategic plan, but we've got KPIs around employment, direct and indirect, and around contribution to gross state product. We've met our targets for 2013, and like all good managers, the government swept that and said, thank you, here's the new ones for 2020. And that's what we're looking at. We're really lucky to have a fantastic advisory board chaired by General Cosgrove. We've got the ex-chiefs of Army, Air Force and Navy, and we've got some serious business folk on that advisory board. Certainly makes up for my lack of experience and knowledge and history with defence. They can open most doors and make great counsel. We use them extensively. We're the only state with an Minister for Defence Industry. So that sets us apart. We're known as the defence state. That happened a lot more quickly than I expected. But I've since found out the reason why is the other states are really quite negligent when it comes to focusing on such a great opportunity. There's some figures up there about our contribution. At the moment it's about 1.8 billion, and it's about nearly 28,000 direct and indirect people employed. The good figures for the state are that we currently achieve of that around 5 billion Indigenous defence skills and procurement through life support. We secure over 25% of that in South Australia for a 7% population state. That's impressive. And also we've got 32% of defence industry located in the state. So whichever way we look at it, it's good. A good comparator is the wine industry, for example, generates about 1.7 billion a month for the state. So it's up there, it's the same with water. I'll just run through a few major projects because I won't go into too much detail because we're a little time limited, but the Collins project, let me assure you, the Collins submarine is the best conventional submarine in the world by 1 million miles. Forget the Dud subs story, that's a thing of the past. Now fitted with American combat systems. It still has some challenges in relation to its drivetrain propulsion, but there are solutions in hand for that. And it is now an amazing thing. I was talking to Steve Ludman this morning just to get some background on what Collins has been doing in the last 5 months. The Collins submarines have travelled 25,000 nautical miles in the last 5 months, have participated in 13 exercises, including 7 international exercises, and they've fired 15 weapons, 1 a war shot. In other words, they sunk a ship. So they're very active, and they do a huge amount also in intelligence advance and reconnaissance that we never hear about because if they told us they'd have to kill us. The air warfare destroyers being assembled, or partly built and totally assembled in South Australia. 8 billion project, 2.3 billion goes to the South Australian industry. It's a huge enterprise. If you haven't been down to Techport and have a look, I recommend that you do. There's the first ship's now being assembled, and it's quite apparent from several vantage points, and it is exceeding 50% Australian content. It also consumes a lot of local small and medium enterprises. So it's a great project, and the first ship will go on the water, as it says there, in 16, and the last at the moment in 19. We're battling hard to try and achieve a 4th air warfare destroyer to keep the continuity of work. Just to show the complexity of this ship, it's built in blocks. They're being built in Newcastle, Melbourne and South Australia, the Techport, and they're brought here and assembled. You'll note that the blue blocks, they're the very complex ones with all the smart systems, and they're being built by FASCE. There's 31. Orion, maritime surveillance and reconnaissance aircraft. We take them for granted, we see them occasionally flying around, but they're a very potent capability for the nation. They've just come back from over 10 years in the Middle East, or something, and where they've done an outstanding job. They are due to be replaced in the near future with jet aircraft, effectively 737s, but also there will be some large unmanned aerial vehicles, all will be located at Edinburgh. So that's a $1 billion program that's ongoing for us and will be larger than that in the next 5 to 10 years. People probably don't appreciate Sentinel. Cobham run a $1 billion program providing coastal surveillance for the Customs Border Protection Command. They're the people that fly aircraft and pick up all the boat people and that sort of thing, and alert the Navy to where to go. There's 10 Dash 8 aircraft at Adelaide Airport, specially fitted out. They fly from forward bases, but they're run from here and they're maintained, etc. here. So it's a big enterprise. Again, flow on to small to medium enterprises, and it leads to us being the intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance capital of Australia, with those aircraft, the submarines, and the Over-the-Horizon Radar project. The big change we've had in Army is the relocation of the 7th Royal Australian Regiment Battalion from Darwin down to Adelaide. It's 1,200 people at Edinburgh. The Commonwealth, combined with the Army extensions and the Air Force modifications for C-17 transport aircraft, have spent over $1 billion out there in the last 3 years. Most of South Australians don't appreciate it. It is the latest Army and training barracks in the world, and it's very spectacular. The 7th RAR is currently being deployed to Afghanistan, so there's not a lot of them there at the moment, but that's their home, and they'll continue to build and grow there. The upcoming opportunities for us are the maritime program, but particularly the future submarines, and that's a big program. It is committed by both political parties to South Australia. There's still work to be done on choosing the actual design, but the build will be here, which is very important to us. It provides continuity. In fact, the maritime replacement project over the next 30 years is worth $250 billion in procurement and through life support. That's $250 billion, and to put it in perspective, current value of the Snowy Mountain scheme is $8 billion. So we're talking about a nation-building project, and South Australia is right in the heart. Just quickly show you some of the facilities. You may not be aware, but Woomera is the largest test evaluation range in the world over land. It's as big as the UK, and it's very special because it's electronically acquired, and it's an absolute treasure and asset, and we feed off that. It's very heavily used at the moment by for testing and evaluation of equipment, and it's also used by our colleagues. Kultana is being expanded from 500 square kilometres to 2,500 as a training ground for motorised and other troops. All the troops that went to Iraq and Afghanistan did final training at Kultana before being deployed, primarily because the terrain up there looks exactly the same as it does in those places. We've also got Port Wakefield Proof Range. Again, the joy of that is they can fire long-range weapons into the sea and recover the projectiles at low tide, and that's quite a unique feature. And there's a small arms facility at Murray Bridge. There's 3 industry areas. Sorry. First one's Techport. Techport's very new. There's been about $500 million spent between the state and the Commonwealth down there in the last 3 years. This area is, this shipbuilding section is relatively new. The common user facility is the piece owned by the state and operated by the state. It's the world's southern hemisphere's largest ship lift. and the submarine section has been there for some years. It is the most advanced naval construction and dockyard facility in the world. We're looking to a big future tied to that ship replacement program that I spoke of earlier. I won't go into the detail of the other assets down there, but clearly it involves space for industry, great transport, great comms, and it is a world-class facility. Next one is Technology Park. It really is the home of the largest electronic warfare presence. Electronic warfare and systems integration is a huge part of what goes on today and flows into other industries. So it's a key opportunity for South Australia to grow and feed off leading edge technologies. Most of the major contractors are there. And I spoke earlier of Edinburgh. It combines now, it's one of 2 super bases in Australia because it has the Air Force and the Army. It's continuing to be expanded. There'll be more troops coming. The Air Force is spending more money there. It's also home to Defence Science Technology Organisation, which is another jewel. It's where all the research and development is done for defence on weapons systems, platforms, the whole shooting match. So it employs some 1,400 scientists and technologists. It's another high-tech gem for the state. So in summary, defence is extremely important to the state. The reason I'm passionate about it is an opportunity for us to develop an industry that will last for generations. If you think back to after World War II, prior to that we were an agribusiness state. After that the Playford went and attracted textiles, white goods, motor vehicles, and we started our manufacturing base. The white goods and textiles have gone to our neighbours in the north, and I'm not sure about the longevity of the motor vehicle industry. So the neat thing about the high-tech end of defence industry is that it isn't going offshore in a hurry. It's a sovereign, protected species, and therefore it's something we can really leave as a legacy to our kids and grandkids. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I think a lot of us might have thought of South Australia as something of an industrial backwater. I think just in the brief summary that Andrew has given us there, he's demonstrated we've got some genuinely world-class assets and facilities here that probably surprise to people. I suspect there are some questions that arise from that. David?
Very interesting talk. Clearly the state's got a huge future. Now can you tell me how the opportunities that presents is translated down to the school system? Because when those new projects come on board, the year 10s and 11s will have their degrees and ready for work. I'm not conscious of any training in schools or curricula in schools that match the future opportunities there. Can you tell us something about that?
Sure. There are 4 things the state government can do. The business is done by the monopoly, customer, defence and industry that supplies it. What a state government can do is facilitate and grease wheels. We can do, and the most important one is skills, skills, skills. If we attract all these high-tech industries here, we've got to give them a pipeline of skills. So the skills thing, in my view, is the one that is the biggest challenge. We've had a bit of a reprieve in that the mining industry's slowed down a bit, so it gives us a bit more time. The state is focused on bringing together from primary right through to tertiary and vet education, a coordinated skills program. There's some other things the state does, but the main one is skills. There are programs that you're probably not aware of. The Taparoo High School, for example, and I think there's 5 down there, that are now feeding in or tied up with ASC and introducing a maritime environment to kids so that they understand what opportunities are available in ship and submarine construction. There's some exercises where the prime contractors go into schools, form partnerships with them, particularly in the northern suburbs at the moment. It should be expanded elsewhere, where they coach the teachers, and that's one of the key things, because for a long time teachers were not keen on either mining or defence, because one was uranium and bombs and the other one was war and killing people. So there is a serious effort to coach the teachers and introduce the kids to programs where they actually run small development programs within the private contractor establishments. A lot more to do, very important.
Although I thought South Australia being the defence state, it seems to me that makes us a target militarily. And I really appreciate to know, given the service to MSL unit up at Woodside closed and there are no jet aircraft at Edinburgh, how would we protect such wonderful assets?
The target question is a good one. To date, there are no hostiles with range capability to target us, so you can take some comfort in that. The thing about defence is that it's not aimed at getting into a shooting war, it's aimed at deterrence. The thing you need to consider is what happens if we didn't have the capability to slow people down or make them think again about Australia. We are the largest island nation in the world. We dependent, 90% of our trade goes by ship, and we need to be able to protect our sea lanes and our capacity. The way to do that is through submarines are without doubt the biggest deterrent, because you don't know where they are. And that makes people think before they send boatloads of people in. The aircraft are very important, and the surface ships are very important in terms of protection of our ships when we get people in the region. So it is a consideration, but it's not one I lose sleep over. I think the balance is right.
Anthony?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We've had a problem with the column submarines. It's well documented. Why don't we buy the American top-range, long-distance submarines, because we are an island nation. We need 10 or a dozen of these things. We can't afford the columns, can we?
Okay. I've really got to put the myth about columns to bed. It's now the best conventional submarine in the world, the most stealthy, and it operates and does things in places that we wouldn't believe. Why don't we buy an American, you're talking about the Virginia-class nuclear submarine. A, we don't have a nuclear industry. B, if we were to have purchased those, the purchase price is around $2 billion, and you can multiply the cost of running those by about 5 or 6 times the purchase price of the life of the thing. Plus, everything would have to go back to America for the services and the upgrades. Either that, or we'd have a compartment in the submarine that was full of American sailors that we weren't allowed in. It's just not on the radar. It's not a sensible suggestion. Until we had a nuclear industry here where we could apply the skills needed to operate nuclear craft, it's not worth thinking about in terms of cost. Secondly, the Americans don't want us to have their nuclear submarines. They want us to have the Collins or equivalent or a conventional submarine, because we can operate in much shallower waters in the South China Seas and north of us without detection, whereas the nuclear subs can be picked up in shallow water through satellite surveillance. So it's just not an option.
Perhaps one more question, David.
Thanks, Andrew. It's fascinating. A bit of news lately about cyber defence. I'm wondering is there opportunity in South Australia for that, or is it already happening? Are there opportunities for young people studying IT? What's it really mean?
Yeah, cyber warfare is actually the biggest threat of all at the moment. And there is a cyber centre being established, a joint defence cyber centre in Adelaide, but there's a bigger one being established in Canberra for obvious reasons. Having said that, some of the prime contractors here, Lockheed Martin, BAE, Raytheon, etc., have huge cyber warfare expertise around the world, and they import it here into South Australia. It's huge. It's the biggest challenge we face. If you talk to these companies alone, the number of hits they have a day from our neighbours in the north is just incredible, much less the Department of Defence numbers. So it's top of mind.
Thank you. I think we'll need to wind it up there. We'll all agree that that was an outstanding summary of the defence situation in Australia, and I think Andrew's amply demonstrated his extensive knowledge. I don't know whether he's able to stay back for a couple of minutes after the meeting to answer any other questions. Now, normally at this point, Andrew, I would make a presentation of one of our fantastic rotary pens to you, but circumstances have conspired to mean that I don't have that to. We can do a virtual one. So